just have no place on this program.
I thought they were cocky SOBs, to be honest with you.
Well, I guess they weren't in Podunk, Texas, or that's what we'd be calling them.
It's true, and this, Nick brings up a good point, because I always knew what I felt happened. And then we did begin to look at this a little bit differently. We did things that really aren't discussed, aren't shown, aren't analyzed. And this Building 7, which we're going to get into, we're going to show, is very, very interesting, because everybody knows about the two towers that fell. Everybody knows that.
The story that everybody got about the two towers that fell is they both got hit by airplanes.
Right.
The jet airline fuel was superheated. The place was 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and eventually the building could no longer support its own weight. The metal buckled, it collapsed, and fell down, and that's what we all saw on live TV on September 11th, 2001. And this is kind of this is our generation's like JFK moment, if you will. If you talk to our parents and their parents, everybody talks about the JFK assassination. Where were they? What were they doing? School got let out that day. Whatever happened, that's the moment. Everybody in America knows where they were when JFK was assassinated.
Yeah.
And for us, everybody knows where they were on 9/11 when the buildings fell.
I do have to put this out there, because I feel very strongly about 9/11, and it changed a lot of things with me. But when 9/11 happened, I remember I actually skipped class that day, and I was watching on the Biography Channel about Napoleon Bonaparte, and I did not even realize what was going on until almost noon.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I was training a class that day at a Radisson nearby, not too far from where we are today, and there was actually somebody who had taken the class for the morning, so I watched the whole thing live. I remember watching the second plane hit, and then the subsequent collapse of both buildings. I saw the whole thing live. I was right there. I was watching.
If you were to ask how many buildings fell, what do you think that most people would say?
Most people would say 2.
Exactly.
Both towers.
And you know what? The sad thing is, you asked me 3 years ago how many towers fell. I'd tell you 2.
That's right.
I would. But Building 7, Building 7 went down. Why? Why would that go down? We know that a plane didn't hit it. We do know there's a couple of fires in there.
Right.
Buildings have fires all the time.
And we also know that there were buildings between Building 7. If you were to look at the campus of the World Trade Center, you would see the 2 large towers, followed by buildings 3, 4, 5, 6 that kind of surrounded those towers. And on the outside, the last building that was built, I believe, in 1994 or 95, was Building 7. And this building housed the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, the Secret Service, all kinds of government agencies, as well as some private organizations were all housed.
With the defense things about Enron, Worldview.com?
WorldCom.
That's it.
WorldCom, Enron, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot, and these were the private companies that had information and more information supposedly about additional corporations and future indictments that could have followed. Well, anyways, all of this stuff was supposedly housed in Building 7. And
the question is, why did it go down?
Well, and why did it go down when it went down? It went down in the afternoon.
At 5:30 p.m. it went down. Now, the other 2 towers went down right about, they were before 10 o'clock.
First, in the morning,
right.
Absolutely.
Before 10 o'clock, and this thing went down at 5:30?
That's right.
At 5:30. And what a lot of people have to say is that the whole conspiracy is that the government was behind blowing it up. Not only blowing up Building 7, but also behind blowing up the 2 towers. And a lot of people think that was crazy. However, there are some interesting things that a lot of people have said, a lot of engineers and a lot of architects, about how the building fell, how the planes hit the building. Once conspiracy gets going, conspiracy gets going. That's just the way it is. They have some people who say we never landed on the moon, which, poor Neil Armstrong. I feel for the guy. I do. There's some people say that. Some people say that Roosevelt allowed the Japanese to attack Pearl Harbor to get us into the war. Some people say that, yes, the government was behind killing JFK. The people were saying that Martin Luther King's men were behind shooting JFK. And it all depends on what you think. But you got to have the facts. And if you do have an open mind, it does get pretty interesting once you see all aspects of it.
That's true. It is kind of, it's a rabbit hole, and do you want to go down this path? Is this something you want to do? There may be a lot of folks that don't want to know the details. And am I suggesting that the government killed 3,000 of its own citizens on 9/11/2001? I don't buy that for a second. And really, I think it's kind of unfortunate there's a lot of people running out there saying these kinds of things. But I do believe that there's some examination required. We should question our government. We should ask things like, why did 7 go down? And Building 7 is not even included in the 9/11 Commission report.
Yep.
There's nothing in it about it. Now, I haven't read that cover to cover, but the information that we've received says that it's not included at all. Why would that? Sometimes the things that you need to look for are what's not included as opposed to what is included. And that there is no inclusion of Building 7, which went down on the same day, and this video footage of it, that's pretty significant, if you ask me.
Well, here's some of the doubts about just the building falling down. David Ray Gryden, who actually is opposing the 9/11 Commission, says these things. High-rises have never collapsed before. There have been massive fires in Brazil in high-rises. There have been massive fires in several places, and they've never collapsed the way they collapsed. Also, the specific nature of the collapses.
That includes other buildings that day. That includes buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6, which were closer than Building 7 and sustained significant damage. And if you were we'll provide some links later, and there's links on our MySpace as well. But if you were to take a look at these buildings, they sustained very significant damage, more so than Building 7, and they were still standing. They were eventually taken down.
Yeah, and they also said that the specific nature of the collapse is about how it fell straight down. It fell at a free-fall speed. The rubble smoldered for months, and people heard explosions prior to the buildings collapsing. Also, the concrete was pulverized into dust, which they say does not happen if you just drop a piece of concrete from 3,000 feet. And finally, the steel that was actually helping support and what the towers were made of was quickly recovered and sent to Asia to be melted down, and it was gone. That was kind of like the smoking gun, which they got out of the scene as quick as possible.
Now, all of those things, on an individual basis, I think are easily explainable. The sounds of explosions, things are going on, even if it's just a building collapsing. Who knows? The video footage and what you can hear, it sounds like a train going off the tracks. I can't even comprehend what that sound would be like, and so how would you describe it? How would anybody normally describe it? There's no way to know. So any of these things taken on an individual basis, I think, really can be explained. But when you take them kind of as when you add up all of the circumstantial evidence and you think, is there something funny going on here? I think there probably is. We're going to dive into a little bit more of this after our next break. We'll be right back, folks. Thanks for joining us.